tere, minu nimi on Jüri Looring ja tere tulemast siis meie esimesse tehnoloogiaõpetuse tundi. Täna me räägime hästi üldiselt, mida see tehnoloogia siis endast tähendab. Räägime natukene erinevatest sellistest maailma muutnud tehnoloogilistest saavutustest inimkonna poolt. Ja siis lõpetuseks lahendame ühe Kahoot viktoriini, et testida teie teadmisi, mida te siit tunnist omandasite. Ja hakkame nüüd siis pihta, et mis asi see tehnoloogia siis on? Tehnoloogia on iseenesest selline protsess, millega inimesed muudavad ümbritsevat keskkonda oma soovide ja vajaduste rahuldamiseks. Siiski mõeldakse tehnoloogias tihti läbi selle artefaktide. Arvutid, lennukid, tarkvara, pliit, auto ja nii edasi. Aga tehnoloogia kaugeltki mitte ei piirdu ainult esemetega. Ja nüüd vaatame sellist 3 olulist tehnoloogilist saavutust inimkonna ajaloos. Valisin välja just nimelt 3, pidades neid oluliseks. Aga neid on kindlasti palju veel. Et esimeseks võib-olla tunnete ära, mis rakett on siin pildil ja kes sellega lendas ja kuhu ta lendas. Et kui me nüüd vaatame, siis tegemist on Apollo 11 kosmosemissiooni raketiga Saturn V. Ja sellega lendasid siis Armstrong, Collins ja Aldrin esimest korda inimkonna ajaloos Kuule. Missiooni kestvus oli 8 päeva, 3 tundi ja 18 minutit. Tegemist oli, tõesti nagu eelpool sai mainitud, esimese mehitatud maandumisega Kuu pinnal. Eelnevalt, kui oldi mõned korrad ümber Kuu, siis mõned tiirud tehtud ja tagasi tuldud, et katsetada, kuidas need süsteemid toimivad. Et siis see oli 3. lend Kuu orbiidil ja esimene maandumine siis Kuu pinnal, mehitatud maandumine. Ja Kuu moodul maandus sinna 20. juulil 1969 aastal. Kell oli 20:18. Koht, kuhu see maandus Kuu pinnal, oli Vaikuse meri. Ja see oli selline väga suur saavutus inimkonna ajaloos. Käimas oli kosmosevõidujooks 2 superriigi vahel. Üks neist oli Nõukogude Liit ja teine oli siis Ameerika Ühendriigid. Et on spekulatsioone, et ameeriklased võltsisid selle. Ma ise isiklikult nii ei arva. Aga võta näpust, mine tea. Ja nüüd siis suundume ühe sellise sellise video juurde, mis annab väga selge pildi, kuidas see Kuu missioon siis toimus. Ja vaatame, paneme peale.
You're looking at one of the most incredible moments in human history. That's Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walking on the moon. Okay, maybe you've seen this clip before, but think about that for a second. They're on the moon, a celestial object nearly 240,000 miles into outer space. That distance is like flying all the way around the Earth 9.5 times. Millions of people around the world watched on July 16th, 1969, as Apollo 11, carrying astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, launched from Cape Kennedy, Florida, and disappeared into the sky. It was the climax of years of preparation and research, and the pinnacle moment of the so-called space race between the United States and Soviet Union, a years-long rivalry to compete for dominance in space exploration. For the 8 days following the launch, the world awaited the return of the would-be heroes. So what actually happened between here and here? So let's start with the components of the ship that were discarded one by one until this became this. Here's the rocket that sent the astronauts into space, the Saturn V. The 3 stages of the Saturn V each played a different role in launching Apollo on a path to the moon. We'll get to that later. On top of the rocket is the actual Apollo spacecraft. It's made up of 3 parts too. There's the lunar module, the component that would eventually land on the lunar surface, the service module, which had propulsion systems for course corrections and entering and escaping orbit, and the command module, where our 3 heroes were for most of the mission. And last but not least, this is the launch escape system, which was designed to pull the command module away from the rocket if something went wrong during launch. Together, all these pieces made up the Saturn V rocket and Apollo 11 spacecraft. But it's the way they came apart that made the moon landing happen. The Saturn V's first stage launched Apollo, carrying the spacecraft 42 miles above the Earth and reaching a speed of about 6,000 miles per hour. The first stage then detached, and once the Saturn V's second stage kicked in, the now needless launch escape system jettisoned too. The second stage propelled the spacecraft even farther and faster into space, and after it detached, the third stage of the rocket fired briefly to knock Apollo into a parking orbit 103 miles above the Earth's surface. Here, final checks were made, and the Saturn V fired again to set Apollo on course to the moon, in a move called the translunar injection. Once the spacecraft propelled away from Earth, the Saturn V's job was done. Now, the astronauts needed to pull off a mid-flight maneuver to reconfigure the ship so the crew could access the lunar module, which had been stored in a protective compartment during launch. To do this, the command service module detached and flipped 180 degrees, docking with the lunar module and extracting it. In the process, they ditched the third, now useless stage of the Saturn rocket. This whole high-stakes launch process only took about 3.5 hours, and this, the completed Apollo spacecraft, was the end result. For the next 3 days, Apollo coasted through space, until it finally reached its target and was pulled into orbit by the moon's gravity. This is where the crew split up. Armstrong and Aldrin transferred to the lunar module, named Eagle, and slowly descended toward the surface, while Collins continued to circle the moon in the command module, called Columbia. Now, here comes another tricky part, landing on the moon. To make this historic moment happen, Eagle turned and used its engine to slow its momentum and ultimately touch down on the lunar surface.
The Eagle has landed.
The moonwalk was broadcast live on television, immortalizing Neil Armstrong's words here.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I think that was Neil's quote. I didn't understand.
No, one small step for man, but I didn't get the second phrase.
After about 21.5 hours on the moon, Eagle performed the first launch from a celestial body that wasn't Earth, leaving its landing gear behind and timing its ascent with Columbia's path in lunar orbit to rejoin the spacecraft. Once Armstrong and Aldrin transferred back into the command module, the lunar module was no longer needed. Just like before, Apollo needed to break out of orbit. This maneuver was called the trans-Earth injection, and began the 2.5-day journey home. Upon approaching its entry point into Earth's atmosphere and no longer needing its propulsion engines, Apollo jettisoned the service module and prepared for re-entry, protected by the now exposed heat shield on the bottom of the command module.
Apollo blazes across the heavens, coming back to Earth at 25,000 miles an hour.
Parachutes deployed, and Columbia splashed down safely into the Pacific Ocean. And what was once a 3,000-ton behemoth of rocket, fuel, and freight was reduced to this: a small command module floating in the ocean, carrying 3 astronauts and rock samples collected from the surface of the moon.
Ma loodan, et te olete siin põhikoolis piisavalt juba inglise keelt õppinud, et te saite aru sellest videost. Väga ülevaatlik, väga hea sellise graafilise lahendusega ja kindlasti õppisite palju uusi mõisteid. Nüüd vaatame teist pilti. Tegemist on siis, mis te arvate? Meenutab nagu natuke mahlapressi õppes. Mis te arvate, millega on siin pildil tegemist? Annan teile natukene mõtlemisaega. Vaadake, mõelge. 10. Kui oleks nagu päris tund, siis ma küsiks, no Sten, ütle, mis sa arvad, millega on tegemist? Või siis Peeter, Mari, mis sa arvad, millega on tegemist? Aga no meil ei ole päris tund, mõelge veel. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 ja 0. Tegemist on siis trükimasinaga. Trükimasin on siis selline mehaaniline seadeldis, mille abil saab paberile või teistele materjalidele trükkida teksti ja muid kujutisi. Leiutas trükimasina mees nimega Johann Gutenberg. Tegelikult pani ta vaid mitu tehnoloogiat kokku. Esimese masina tegi näiteks Gutenberg sellise aparaadi nagu mahlapress eeskujul. Ja trükimasinate valmistamise ajalugu algas 1439 aastal Saksa linnas nimega Mainzis. Ja nüüd vaatame, kuidas selline nimemasin nagu trükipress toimib. Aga eelnevalt, mis te arvate, mis oli esimene raamat, mida trükiti Gutenbergi trükipressiga? Ma arvan midagi pärast kindlalt ei tea praegu, aga arvan, et see on maailmas enim trükitud raamat. Vastuseid Peeter näiteks või Stiina sealt. Nii, hakkame jälle sekundid lugema. 3, 2, 1 ja õige vastus on siis Piibel. Esimene raamat, mida trükipressiga trükiti, oli Piibel. Ja nüüd siis lähme selle video juurde. Siin on siis enam-vähem täpne koopia Gutenbergi trükipressist ja vaatame siis, kuidas see toimub.
He just took a bowl, put a handle on it, stuffed it with horsehair and covered it with, guess what? Gänzefly, goose skin. So he finally made use of his thing. I don't know why he used goose skin, but it must have worked really well because Bibles that are still in existence are just beautiful. So this is the way he would roll the ink onto the ink ball. By turning, rocking, and rolling it onto the ink ball. So hence we know that Gutenberg was the first rock and roller. Now he used 2 ink balls because that would speed up the process of inking. So he has to rub the ink balls together so that they're both exactly the same. We've got to get the ink perfectly smooth over the whole surface of the ink ball, the same thickness, and evenly distributed. And so rolling up the balls did take a little practice and a little skill, and also a little time to get it just right. What do you think? Does that look pretty smooth?
Very nice.
These are Gutenberg lollipops. How about a lick? Nobody likes licorice.
Well, ever since that first.
Okay. Now we have to come straight down with the ink balls to get the ink just on the tops of those letters. If we went like that, it'd smear off onto the edges, wouldn't fill the letters in. So coming straight down, we begin to apply the ink to the tops of those letters. The person that did this became known as the beater. And of course it took a little practice and skill to do this, because we have to get a little ink on every letter, and we can't get too much on a letter because that would just fill it in. Get a good impression for you guys and gals. So I'll take a little time here to get it well inked.
How many did you print in the first Did you mention that?
Okay, I think we're about ready to go.
We printed
What's the next?
How many? 120. You don't want me to-
Don't interrupt me, please. Okay, now I forgot where I was at.
You were asking us the next
I'm
step.
inking the type, okay. What's the next thing he has to have to print on?
Paper.
Well, something to print on. He printed about 180 copies of that first Bible, 40 of them on animal skin, and the rest of them he was able to print on paper. Paper had just been invented in China and had come to Europe through Italy. Now the paper was being made for the scribes, and so it was hard and slick, didn't work very well with Gutenberg's oil-based ink. So he had to soften the paper by dampening it. Now I knew that if he just laid a sheet on like this and rolled it into there, he couldn't make, and rolled it into, he's got to figure out how to print on the other side and line it up exactly. And so here's the answer to that problem, the tympan and the frisket. We'll open it up here. This is called the tympan. It's just leather over a frame that provides a place for us to put our paper on. These little points called duckbills position it up and down. And then the mark left and right here. Now watch this. These pins poke through the paper. And when he prints on the other side, he puts the paper back on through those same holes. And that gives him perfect alignment between the front and the back. It's still basically the same system that's used on printing presses even today, pin register. Now the frisket comes down to hold the paper against the tympan. It's cut out there where we're going to print. It also allows us to lift that paper back up off that sticky type without smearing it or tearing it because it's damp. So we're ready to fold the bed of the press under the platen. The next thing that happens is we pull the handle, which turns the screw and lowers the platen and presses the paper against the inky type. The person that did this was called a very exotic name, the puller. So we're going to have some of you guys and gals be pullers. We're going to make 2 impressions. So let's have, why don't you come and do our first impression. 2 hands up there and pull it towards you as
hard as you can.
Try to make a good impression.
Don't break it. When President Monson was here, he pulled that thing, and I said, don't break it. Bob brought the house down. He really pulled it, though. He moved the press a little bit.
Okay, now notice the size of the platen. It's really quite small. Because the bigger the platen is, the more power it takes to get sufficient impression. So we just printed the 1 page, so we've got to roll it out and get the other page. Now we'd like to have some of the gals do it. How about...
Go for it, Sabrina. I'll film for you.
Yeah, take a picture. We're going to pause while we do it. Pull it as hard as you can.
Okay,
hard.
come on.
Don't
We've got to make a good impression.
Both on top.
That's what Gutenberg did.
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
It's hard.
Did it?
Yeah, how'd you like to do that all day long?
You'd have some arm muscles.
All right, now we're going to roll it out. Now listen quiet, and then you can hear the frisket lift that paper
This is called
off that sticky
the
type.
press kiss.
Oh boy.
We did pretty good.
Wow.
You did a pretty good inking job and a pretty good pulling job.
ja nüüd siis video vaadatud ja nüüd lähme edasi 3. tehnoloogilise saavutuse inimkonna ajaloos. Mis te arvate, mida see pilt teile meenutab? Nagu oleks mingisugused väravad või müür, on ju. Pakkumisi, mõelge seal kodudes. Teil on natukene aega ja kohe ütlen ära. Tegemist on sellise ehitisega nagu akvedukt. Näiteks teadaolevalt vanim suur ehitis veejuhtmena. Akvedukt ehk siis veejuhe. Ja teadaolevalt esimene selline veejuhe akvedukt on pärit Niinive lähistelt Jerevanist. Ja see juhtis Niinive linna joogivett. Kuna sel ajal veel nagu pumpasid ei teatud, et nagu pumpaks maa seest või siis puurkaeve ei tehtud, on ja, ei loodud, siis enamik vett toodi siis suurematesse linnadesse läbi selliste veejuhmete. Loodi erinevaid süsteemid ja roomlased olid sellega väga osavad. Näiteks 3. sajandi alguses varustasid Rooma linna veega 11 suurt akvedukti. Kui võtame nüüd näiteks ühe Aqua Marcia, ma ei tea, kas hääldus on õige, mis valmis 1140 aastat enne meie aega ja see oli umbes 92 kilomeetrit pikk. See on siit näiteks, kui me võtame siit Pärnust enam-vähem Viljandisse distants. See ehitati ilma koppa, ilma suurte bensiinimootoril töötavate koppadeta, ilma arvutiprogrammideta 92 kilomeetrit juhiti siis vett Rooma linna. Rooma linnas oli see lugu, et see järjest kasvas ja ühel hetkel siis juhtus selline lugu, et vett ei ole. Ja kui vett ei ole, siis hakkavad levima haigused. Lisaks veel joogivee puudus loomulikult. Selles suhtes on veevarustus on üks inimkonna siis tähtsamaid asju, mis peab toimima. Aga näiteks, mis see pildil on, see on ainult üks osa akveduktist. Akvedukt koosneb erinevatest sellistest ehituslahendustest. Ja selle pildi peal on näha kaaristut. Kui sul on siis erinevad mäed on ju, kuskil on jällegi mõni selline org vahel on ju, üle oru sa ehitad kaaristu, läbi mägede kaevad siis tunneleid. Nüüd ma näitangi teile sellist hästi iseloomustav või hästi edasiandvat videot, kuidas see akvedukt siis toimis. Siiamaani vist näitan. Nii siis, paneme siis selle video tööle. Läks.
The challenge for the Roman engineers was to keep the water flowing at the same speed on its entire journey. To get around hills, they dug trenches along the contour lines and covered them with bricks and earth. To cross wide valleys, they funneled the water down through lead pipes and up again on the other side. To conquer high mountains, they dug deep tunnels right through them and shafts in their roof for ventilation. To cross long distances on even ground, they built flat walls with a trough in the top. And to channel the water into Rome without obstructing traffic, they built the majestic arched aqueducts we know today. These plumbed into a network of fountains that fed water to 1 million Romans. Today, Rome's fountains are still safe to drink from. And because they always keep the water flowing, they stop the city's pipes from clogging up.
Nii, video vaadatud. Nüüd mõtleme kõik kodudes, milliseid tehnoloogilisi saavutusi te veel teate. Mõelge sellele natukene aega. Et näiteks, milliseid tehnoloogilisi saavutusi teie oma kodudes kasutate igapäevaselt. Mina kasutan näiteks siin, et seda tundi teile paremini edasi anda, kasutan arvutit. Tegemist on siis tehnoloogiaga, täpsemalt siis infotehnoloogiaga. Võime võtta mõne sõiduki. Näiteks, kuidas te veel 2 kuud tagasi koolis käisite. Mõni läks tipadapa bussi peale. See on ka täitsa bussiliiklus, transport. Hästi tehnoloogia. Võime mõelda näiteks ravimitööstusele. Või mida iganes, elekter. Variant on meid ümbritseb ühesõnaga tehnoloogia. Aga nüüd tuleme edasi siia meie väiksesse konnatiiki, Eestisse. Ja milliseid tehnoloogilisi saavutusi on Eestis leiutatud? Näiteks esimese vabariigi ajal oli üks spioonikaamera. See on hästi väike. Minu arust James Bond isegi kasutas. Päris kindel ei ole. Aga üks selline Eestis leiutati väike spioonikaamera. Siis loomulikult, kes ei teaks kuulsat Skype'i, mille Eesti mehed programmeerisid. Praegu peaks olema minu arust Skype Microsofti omatuses. Eelnevalt ostis selle enne Microsofti omas seda, oli eBay, ehk siis muslifirma, Elon muslifirma. Et sellise suure lennu on teinud meie väike Skype. ja siis on veel Schmidti teleskoop. Kuidas nüüd seletada? Schmidti teleskoobid olid juba ennem olemas, aga seal oli selline optiline seadeldis, mis võimaldas siis vaadelda suuremat ala tähistaevas. Et näed sellist väikest ala, aga Schmidt tegi näed suuremat ala. Et kui teil on huvi, siis kindlasti uurige nende 3 Eestis arendatud siis tehnoloogilise saavutuse kohta. Ja kui te midagi veel põnevat teate, mida ma siin ei maininud, siis kindlasti kirjutage mulle endal huvitav. Ja nüüd peale neid videosid testime teie teadmisi, et kui palju teile jäi meelde. Selle jaoks ma postitasin siia alla, samamoodi ka e-kooli, ühe lingi siis Kahooti viktoriinile. Et teeme lõpetuseks ühe Kahooti, testime, mida te omandasite ja pärast vaatame siis tulemusi ja võrdleme neid. Et loodan, et kohtume peagi, loodetavasti sel kooliaastal, kuigi üsna vähe tõenäoline, et ma teie kõigiga sel kooliaastal tutvun, saan tuttavaks, kohtume, aga hoiame pöialt ja seljatame selle viiruse läbi tehnoloogia. Oli meeldiv ja lahendage siis ära Kahooti viktoriin. Sellega siis me tänase Paikuse põhikooli tehnoloogiatunni lõpetame. Mina olin teie õpetaja Jüri Looring ja kohtume juba järgmine tund. Õpime siis, ma arvan, et mida meie järgmistel tundidel teeme. Võiksime vaadata natukene droone, võib-olla teha mõne filmindusülesande, siis natukene programmeerimist ehk. Ja kindlasti leiame veel palju huvitavaid teemasid, subjekte, mida käsitleda. Aga aitäh tähelepanu eest ja kohtume järgmine tund. Nägemist!